Well, put it this way, if there was a movie on Paisley Park, he'd play himself. He was far too clever, but usually horses as clever as him would probably find a way to get out of it. But he was ultra genuine, and he really loved being a racehorse. And since his retirement, he's kind of still in training, which just kind of shows what being a racehorse meant. And I think that crosses into most horses, to be honest. I think they love the routine of training, and he struggled when he kind of got out of it, and he's really enjoying kind of being back in amongst it now, and that kind of is a reflection on his character. He just kind of came out of nowhere, and when he did come to me, I hadn't had a Grade 1 winner, and he wasn't the people's horse as he was then. So we kind of worked our way to that together. Well, he did, and he just carried me with him, literally. And so kind of it just kind of worked its way there. So by the end, it was just really cool, because you'd be going around a parade ring like here or Cheltenham or whatever, and people would actually say that's Paisley Park. You could hear them and all that. I always felt a bit sorry for Tom Bellamy, because obviously when I got hurt, he inherited him off me, and he was like sitting on the famous horse that was Paisley Park. Whereas, as I said, we kind of grew together, so which made it a lot easier. To be fair, one thing Emma said, I think after he won his first, he won a long walk, and then he came back here the next year. He won his long walk. After that, when he kind of won the Grade 1, it was Emma and I's first Grade 1. And we always said, just when we were getting on in the parade ring, geez, isn't it great to have him, and hasn't he done so well? And we continued that for like the next, 15 times I rode him. Every time it was kind of a ritual, we'd say.
He's a horse of a lifetime, and hopefully he will just keep rewarding us.
Just when we kind of got on our own after we spoke to Andrew and Barry and that, and we were kind of waiting for Paisley to come to us, we'd say that every time, and that was one thing that kind of stayed with us. And it's kind of just for us to take the pressure off and to appreciate what we had, and we really did appreciate it. And that's one thing. There's a lot. When I look back at my career, there's a lot I took for granted, most of it, to be honest, but not him. First run handicap, and he top weight. It's a very big task. So I had no aspirations going to entry that day, but when he won, I was thinking, like, this lad must be pretty good to do that. So it was exciting, but did I think he'd reach the heights he would? Absolutely not. No, I don't think. I think when you look back at his career and all the wins and all that, it'd be very naive to think any horse can achieve that. And the manner in which he did it and winning the people's hearts is he's a truly special horse. I think his character, his run style, but there's a lot of stayers like Big Bucks, English Drever to name two, that ran like him. But I suppose with Andrew and all that, it kind of all the ingredients to a nice story, and he never really let us down either.
So Paisley obviously had a fair bit of success at Newbury, including some really quite impressive placed efforts.
Yeah,
probably quite frustrating.
Very
on board and for connections. He had 5 starts in the long distance hurdle. He was never out of the top 3. What kind of horse do you think suits this track? What makes it?
Probably not Paisley, believe it or not. I think this was always a great starting point for him. We started him at Wetherby one time, and it didn't. And then he came here afterwards, and it was probably nearly the wrong thing to do. It was probably Paisley loved racing, and he always improved every start. And this would always fall as his first run of the year, so it wasn't actually an ideal timing time. If you flipped this in the Cleve around, he probably would have been unbeaten in the Cleve and unbeaten in this, just the way it fell. But I said he never ran bad here, and the horse that beat him, like he second to Tyne Hill, he was second to Champ in his prime. When he was third here one day, he probably was the only time he underperformed. So like this is one of the best tracks in the country. It's so fair, and it just probably just fell at the wrong time of the year for him not to win more than one long distance. But as I said, it was always a great starting point for him, and he never ran bad.
So long distance hurdle is obviously a 3-mile contest. How important is your positioning early on? Where do you want to be on that first circuit?
Do you know, around like Newbury, it doesn't really matter where you are. You can take your time. You can be forward. It's all pretty much always a small field. The only thing with here is you don't want to be too far away turning in, but at the same time you don't want to be committing, because as you can see here, it's an awful long way up the straight. But you don't see many coming from too far back.
It's the first year, 2019. You came in as favourite after 5 straight wins. How confident were you feeling?
Oh, very, because that was like literally, that was when he was kind of unbeatable. I think he kind of went, I think he won his next 3 after that again, or definitely 2. He won the long walk, and then he won the Cleve. And then it's actually one of the rare times he ran averages when he had a fibrillating heart at Cheltenham. But so when he came in here, the confidence was very high. But actually, to refresh my memory, I watched the replay, and commentator said after he jumped a couple, I think.
Rather unusually featuring the previous 4 winners of the race.
you know what I mean, Harry, innit, who'd won 2. You had Thistlecrack, who'd won 1. And you had Beer Goggles, who had won 1. And then, like, so you had 4 of the last 5 winners of the race were running in it. And then Paisley won it as well. So obviously, kind of specialist race. And it's good to see all those old favourites coming back. And obviously, he was the young new kid on the block at the time. And he said he rocked up in 4 more of them, didn't he? So it's kind of one of those races. It's good that they all come back, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Paisley Park has narrowly put his head in front now. He goes on to the World's End in second. On the right, Thistlecrack is battling on. Paisley Park at the final flight, landed by about a length. Thistlecrack in second place as they approach the last furlong. They pulled away to the World's End into the closing stages. Paisley Park in front. Thistlecrack, though, is not far behind him in second position. Running inside the last 100 yards. Paisley Park driven out towards the line. It's going to be a narrow one, but it's a victory. Paisley Park, another win, won by about a length.
As I said, this place, it was probably too nearly nice a track for him. There wasn't enough emphasis and stamina for him, and that's why he got beat a couple of times here as well. But he saw it out that day in here.
And then so moving on to the following year in 2020.
That year was kind of an anomaly really with Paisley, because he was coming on the back of his disappointment at Cheltenham that year, and we weren't really sure. I think he had something. We weren't really sure if we had him back or not, because he had a really hard race that day, and it was the only day he literally finished very tired, and he wasn't himself at all. So we weren't really sure if we'd ever see the real Paisley again. So we were just delighted on the day. We were never really happy to finish second, but that day we were delighted because we knew then that we'd have the old Paisley was back, and we could loads to look forward to. So although when you look back, you'd think it would be annoying to finish second, but at the same time we were just delighted. Like we had no expectations that day, because we were just worried if we'd ever see him again, really, and it was great to see him run well.
They head down towards the last. Time Hill on the right with a white cap, jump through to the lead. McFabulous in the noseband in the centre, and here's Paisley Park nearest the grandstand with his challenge. They're inside the last furlong now. Time Hill has the lead of 2 or 3 lengths. Paisley Park is the one chasing him down as they race up towards the line. Time Hill is holding him though, with Richard Johnson has won the Ladbrokes long distance. Paisley Park in second. McFabulous.
Looking back now, might you have moved a little bit earlier on him, or were you happy with how he...
I probably, even though I rode him kind of similar every time, I'd always kind of turn in, and especially a track like Newbury, like Cheltenham, you can swing wide and let him run. Probably would have challenged a little bit closer to Tyne Hill that day, but I kind of rode him how I always rode him, and how I rode him afterwards. But on that day, I would have stayed a bit more towards Tyne Hill. But then saying that, Tyne Hill was a very genuine horse as well, so we might have just raced together and I might never have passed him, but that's what I would have done different. I kind of stayed out there, and Richard Johnson stayed in here, and I think we maybe got a bit lonely, but then maybe Tyne Hill was getting lonely as well. So as I said, on the day we were just delighted he showed form again, but that's another crack. I would have stayed in here.
And on to 2021. He came back this year in cheap pieces.
Yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah, and made the running, which obviously seems a slightly different, well, basically a bit of a change in tactics.
It was the only time he really kind of he wasn't at the races, for lack of a better expression. He just turned in and just said no thank you. I remember he went down to Tree Out and skied it, which showed he had loads left, and didn't go forward at all up the straight for whatever reason. So I think we were a little bit kind of thinking he was getting a bit cute, which we were trying to preempt him, and it's probably the wrong thing to do with him, because he's probably he's definitely cleverer than me anyway. And I think we just said, right, we'll get him up there, get him competitive, and again that really didn't work, because he turned in and it was Thomas Darby and something else came to me, I can't remember what it was, and he really didn't like that. He was a horse that liked to follow, and you're always learning with horses, and even when he was around, that was his third season with him, he was still teaching us, as I said there a second ago, not to forecast what he was going to do, and that was a lesson learned. And I think that's the only time he actually ran bad in this race. I know he was third, but he didn't run well at all, really, to be honest.
Still top through.
Yeah.
So then on to 2022. It's your final ride in the long distance hurdle on him. How confident were you going in? Obviously.
You'd see, I had ridden Champ in his younger days, and he was, and again, although he didn't have the longevity, he was a very talented horse in his own right, that horse, and he just, I think this place really suited him. I think he does exceptionally well around here. It's kind of his track, and Cheltenham really suited us, and that's why he was going to be difficult to beat, and that day I did purposely come wide, because as I said, I'd ridden Champ, and I knew if you left him on his own, he'd probably idle. And he just didn't idle enough, really. And if you look at the line another bit further, he probably would have won. But
Champ driven right out. He's having to get very serious. Paisley Park down the stand side, giving it absolutely everything. They're wide apart, these two fabulous 10-year-olds. Champ on the far side, Paisley Park this side. Champ and Paisley Park. It's a battle royal, and it's very tight.
Again, it's like I said earlier, I think this place just, like, it didn't suit, as in it probably wasn't enough stamina sapping for him. So he was just vulnerable. But at the same time, it was a very good place to start the season, because no horse wants to start the season having a grueler, because, you know, what have you got left for the rest of the year then? And so it was a great place to start him, although it was probably, it didn't play to all his strengths.
And you literally only went down by a neck that day. How does it feel when it comes down to such a short margin?
Oh, not good, really. It's not good. It's sickening, really. You know, it depends on how the race goes. I think that race went pretty well that day. And I think, as I said with Paisley, like, you always have to appreciate him. And he was, at least when, I never minded as much when he got beat here, because it would really mean he was really going to improve coming to Ascot and really going to improve going to the Cleve afterwards. So it just meant that, although it was frustrating on the day, but we knew that, like, we were going to be very competitive over the next, in the next two races. And as I say, like, although it probably didn't play to his strengths, it's probably the perfect place to start him, because no horse wants a grueler, and it's particularly not a clever horse like him. So it was, although we only won one, it probably stood him in good stead for the rest of the year, to be honest.
2023, obviously your pal Tom Bellamy took the ride that year following your injury. Did you speak to him before?
Oh yeah. Me and Tom would be quite close, so good friends. So, like, he was very, and I really appreciate it, because at the time I was still a jockey and I was still coming back, so he was only keeping the seat warm for me. Unfortunately, I lost that battle, and I never came back, but Tom really kept me in the loop.
Here's Paisley Park now, staging a rally on the near side. Dashel Drasher's in front by a length. Paisley Park trying hard to close, and he is closing. Dashel Drasher, though, sticks his neck out. Dashel Drasher from Paisley Park. It's close between them, another thriller.
Andrew, Andrew was a great supporter, and a huge part of the Paisley Park story, well, probably the biggest part of Paisley, invited me, so I couldn't really turn it down. And I could safely say, hand on heart, he's the only horse that I used to ride that, when I wasn't riding, and I was injured, and since that, I really wanted to win, because I owed him so much. And it was, I could never, although if he won, you'd have the FOMO, and you'd be selfishly disappointed for yourself, but that's the nature of jockeys, and you're supposed to be like that if you're any good anyway. I always kind of wanted him to win. It was one thing I could have dealt with. It was him, like, because you could never, he'd done so much for me that if he won, I would have been delighted for him and Andrew and Tom as well. But
obviously, again, he was beaten by quite a short margin that day. And obviously, I'm very much presuming you went into that day, and so did Emma and Andrew, knowing that that would be his last run in the race and his last season. So what did that day mean? How did it feel?
I suppose it's very different. I suppose I hadn't really, I'd say that was probably my first time racing since my accident. I can't imagine I would have been before. So it was all, and it was very new to be standing in the paddock before he ran. Like, I can't remember how many times I rode him, like 19 or 20. So it was very, very new for me to be there. So I think the whole thing to me was a bit nearly overwhelming anyway. And although I remember it, I can't remember much emotions or any of that, because there was probably a lot going on in my brain to process. I remember the drive home being very difficult, because I suppose it was just kind of a raw day for me, to say. And at the time, behind the scenes, I was kind of losing the battle with my leg. It wasn't going great, so there's probably a lot being processed. And although I was really hoping to ride him again, it was very much in the balance then.
And on to Andrew. Obviously, as you mentioned earlier, he really was a massive part of Paisley's story, and probably why everyone completely fell in love with. What was he like to ride for?
He genuinely was the most enjoyable owner to ride for, nearly, because he appreciated it as much as we did. And, like, although he ran well most of the time and he won pretty much, a fair percentage, even those odd few days when he ran bad, he was nearly nicer and more magnanimous in defeat than he was in victory. He was, like, every day was a pleasure, win, lose or draw. You could just, I knew what I had to do, Emma and Barry knew what I had to do, and Andrew just left us all do it, and there was never any, it was just all 100% support all the time. And people would take it for granted, but it really does help when you've got that support behind, because you know whatever decision you make on the racecourse, be it wrong or right, you know, there was going to be no kickback from it, and things like that. It's kind of, as I say, it's unspoken about, and it really does help the occasion. And just really glad we shared so many great days with Andrew, because he's and I still speak to him a lot now. He's a good friend, and he's had a lot of good horses since, and hopefully long may it continue.
What was his relationship with Paisley like?
I'd imagine he was to him, probably more special to Andrew than he was, well, definitely me, I suppose, because you know, I swung in and swung out of Emma's to ride him, whereas Emma, Barry and Andrew like lived and breathed them every day. And again, like Emma, Barry and I and Emma's team, he really appreciated every day. Like, that horse was never ever taken for granted, like sometimes it can happen. And he said, yeah, I hope he enjoyed the ride as much as we did.
What's it like, those big meetings like the Coral Gold Cup meeting, and for you heading into the long distance hurdle on Paisley? What's going through your mind?
Well, they're the kind of meetings one you dream of doing when you're younger, and when you start doing well, you obviously have different goals, like riding a winner and riding a few winners, and then the older you get, you put a lot more emphasis, or I did anyway, on the festivals and the big days, like meetings like this or a festival like this, and so it was really important to up your game and enjoy it as well.
You had a total of 10 wins from Paisley. Which was your favourite memory?
The two that stand out would be, well, there's three really. The first grade one was special because I think I had nearly 1,000 winners ridden by the time I'd ridden that, so it was too long coming, and it was kind of a bit embarrassing on my behalf, and I didn't really like that. So to get that stigma out of the way was brilliant. And then obviously winning the Stairs Hurdle is like, it's one of the, you know, the four main races at Cheltenham, you know, and to win that was special. And he was a real talking horse at the time, so there probably was an element of pressure on that one. And then his last long walk, which was at a rescheduled Kempton, it was like literally 2 days before his 11th birthday, and it was his third long walk, and then win a grade one at that level was pretty special as well. Yeah.
Do you think horses like Paisley Park have an impact on how fans see the sport?
Oh, massively, yeah, massively, because I suppose for one reason or the other, and we know why, because he was the people's horse, there's a lot of publicity around him, and he was on various news shows a lot of the time throughout his career, like that wouldn't be anyway horse racing related, not just the racing channels or whatever. You'd be on a BBC or an ITV, and you know, that's coming into people's living rooms that literally maybe don't like horse racing, or just they don't have any interest in horse racing, and then they watch it, and it's just nice to see, like, he got no special treatment, you know, not at all. He was treated like every other horse, and that's like a king, and you know, I wouldn't mind being a racehorse for a day, to be honest.